I think the last time we were in this room, I was handing out the checks to you guys.
That's right.
I think may have been the case. So, well, it's great to be back in Jacksonville. I don't know if you guys had quite the snow that we did on the western part of the state in the north, but it was quite a last day or two for Florida. We smashed records for snow. I think we got almost 10 inches or maybe even 10 inches in some parts of northwest Florida. I know we had a freeze across the rest of the northern part of the state, but pretty remarkable. And so we're thawed out. We're going to hopefully see the corner. You know, everyone should still visit Florida. This is totally unusual. It's not necessarily. I mean, I thought global warming had stopped this, right? And yet here we are. So come and do it. Now, we're here to discuss pending issues for the state, particularly for next week in this special session of the Florida legislature that I have called. We're joined here in this roundtable by Dave Kerner, who runs Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, which also includes Florida Highway Patrol. Of course, Representative Cayenne Michaels, Florida House of Representatives, 16th District. Sheriff T.K. Waters here, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And then Nick Injegno, did I say that right? Assistant Secretary, Agent in Charge, Department of Homeland Security Investigations. And so we have been in Florida, and not just Florida, I mean, certainly Republicans around the country, for 4 years, were complaining about Biden's border policies. He obviously came in for almost 4 years ago now, reversed what Trump 45 had done, basically opened the borders to this country in ways that had huge numbers of people, millions and millions of people pouring in. And it led to, I mean, I don't know if you saw, they did an ICE operation, I think in Boston, and they got this criminal. This guy had been convicted of things, just sitting there. So they grab him and they're going to deport him. And he's like MFing all this stuff. He says he's not going back to Haiti. I'm just thinking, like, they developed a sense of entitlement about those Biden policies where people thought they could come in and break the law with impunity. But that's what it was. And I know all across this country, certainly all across this state, Republicans who are running for office, especially, saying how they were against it. You know, you can't do. So we've been fighting this fight for a number of years, both working with law enforcement here in Florida, but also just having good policy that deters people from wanting to come illegally to our state in the first place. And if you think about it, 2023, we did sweeping reforms. Cayenne was involved with shepherding those through. Massive reforms to discourage illegal immigration. The media was saying our whole economy would collapse because we were discouraging illegal, which is totally false, and we've continued to grow very, very significantly. But one of the things we did E-Verify for new hires. We required hospitals to collect and report on the healthcare costs incurred by illegal immigrants, because you show up to the emergency room by federal law, they have to serve you. They're not permitted to turn you away even if you're not lawfully here. So we were trying to do that. And what's happened since then? Massive decrease in costs, incredible decrease in costs. So there were all these different things that we've done to be able to fight back against that. And we even had a transport program. I mean, you know, you saw a big change in the debate on the border once you had illegals showing up in Martha's Vineyard. I mean, that was like, they didn't even think about it. Then all of a sudden that happened a couple years ago. Then people started talking about the border more and more. So there was a whole host of things that we've done. We've leaned in. We've sued Biden under Attorney General Moody. Now she's our U.S. Senator now, but she was the Attorney General then, did that. And we're happy to lead that. But the reality is there's only so much a state can do. You need the federal government to do its job. Well, now we saw on January 20th the total change in policy with respect to border and illegal immigration under the Trump 47 administration. So this is a great opportunity for our country, but certainly for people that have been complaining about Biden for the last 4 years. You want to now get in the fight and be part of the solution. And it's simple things like, you know, I had to surge boats in South Florida 2 years ago because they're coming in and people they get to the shore. So we surged in boats and we interdicted a lot of them, turned them over to the Coast Guard. They send them back. A lot of them come from Haiti and some of these other countries over there. But if they got to the shore, then somehow Biden would let them stay. Well, now they've already beefed up the Coast Guard, but we're going to get, if they show up on the shore, we should still be able to just send them right back. Why would we engage in all this stuff? So there's a lot of possibilities for us now that we have federal partners that really want to get the job done. So you look at it, you can be thankful that, yes, borders matter, the law matters again, but you still got to implement all this stuff. And I'm telling you, you're going to have states like California, you're going to have cities like Chicago, they are going to try to frustrate and to stop any type of enforcement of immigration laws. I think a lot of those political elected officials have already come out and said that, but certainly you'll see the ACLU filing lawsuits mean, I think they basically think you have a right to come here illegally whenever you want. And they will try to find a liberal judge, maybe it'll be in Hawaii, that will rule for them. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts. So it's not like it's just you do an executive order and all of a sudden all the pieces fall into place. You also have a fact that really it's been probably 10, 15 years since they've really been very, very pro. I mean, a lot of the resources, a lot of the policies changed over many years. And so, yes, it was way worse under Biden, but I think this is the first time in a long time we've really been committed in a big way from day one. So this is really, really good, but they don't have enough resources, the federal government. They're not going to be able to do this by themselves. And if the states and cities are fighting in the blue states, that's going to make it even more difficult. So here we are in Florida with a chance to help make a difference and to be part of the solution once again. We banned sanctuary cities my first year as governor, and we're not a sanctuary state. So local officials, state officials obviously are gonna follow, but you don't have the right to block any type of immigration enforcement, and if you do that, you can lose your job. And certainly, if I have any authority over it, you will lose your job if you do that. But that's not enough. It's not just saying you won't sabotage the federal government enforcing immigration law. We want our localities, municipalities, counties, and of course state, which I can just order. We want all them to help facilitate this important mission. Not displace the federal government's role, obviously it's their primary responsibility, but to complement that and to work with them so that we have robust interior enforcement of our nation's laws once again. So seeing that this was coming down the pike, and I had spoken with the president-elect at the time, as we were speaking with some of the people in the transition, that we knew these executive orders were coming out, we knew that they were going to be very serious about doing this, but we also knew that they were going to need more resources, they were going to need funds, they're going to need things, so it's not going to happen immediately, particularly in the next 3 to 6 months. So states can really be an important part of this by stepping up to help fill the void. So we prepared to do that really many weeks ago. I called the special session of the legislature to start on January 27th, and they are to address the issue of immigration, as well as the issue of petition security and election integrity, the condos to fix that, and then also any outstanding hurricane relief. But clearly this immigration stuff, there's a mandate from the voters. They want this dealt with. They are sick of having lawlessness reign supreme in this country when it comes to who comes in our country. That is not for foreigners to decide. It's for us to decide as Americans through the normal political process and in the laws we choose to enact through our elected representatives. So the Monday special session is a great opportunity for the members of the Florida legislature to basically just put their money where their mouth is. Everyone has been complaining about Biden for 4 years. Now we have a new sheriff in town. Now we have an opportunity to make a difference. So let's make sure that our local partners, the state of Florida, has the adequate legal authorities and the adequate funding necessary to be able to really make a difference when it comes to the rule of law and immigration enforcement. So I've put out a series of proposals that, look, there's other people that can have other good ideas too. Bring it to the table, but now's the time to do it. We want to ensure that all of our levels of government are participating positively alongside the federal government with these efforts. And there's different things that they can do, 87G, getting into the weeds, but we want to impose the duty on them that you can't block, you can't be part of the problem, but you actually have to be part of the solution. Now, I'll order the state agencies to do that just as my authority as governor, but cities and counties need to be part of the solution. We want to make sure that that's very, very clear. We also want to make sure that we have somebody in state government that will be able to coordinate with both our local entities as well as federal authorities. If you look at some of the things that have come down, it's not just going to be Department of Homeland Security. You're going to have other agencies that are involved in different ways, maybe not as much domestically, but for example, if someone comes illegally, you want to send them back, the country's got to accept them. So sometimes that requires diplomacy from the State Department. Defense is going to be on the border. You're going to see a lot going on. So there's going to be a lot of irons in the fire. We want to make sure that we're coordinating those efforts in a way that's really, really positive. Our transport program that we've done helped raise visibility of the issue for the general public, but ultimately we were never permitted to send to foreign countries or to repatriate. Now I think we're going to be able to have that authority. So if we're going to be having people wash up on the Florida Keys, if we stop them before they get to the Keys now, we give them to the Coast Guard sends them back. But if they get to the shore somehow, then we're just stuck forever. That's not good policy. So I think we're going to be empowered to take and to send back to Haiti or Bahamas or wherever the illegals are coming from. So making sure we're expanding the transport program's authority is something that's really, really significant. Gang enforcement. You see these gangs coming in illegally into the country, whether it's the Venezuelan gangs or other gangs, They shouldn't even be allowed in the country. But obviously, you want to give law enforcement the ability to take care and to hold these people accountable, including by referring them to immigration authorities. And so we want to make sure that we're doing what we need to be done for gang enforcement. We also have to reform voting and education with respect to illegal aliens. Now, one of the things that Florida did, I wasn't a governor at the time, but it was 2014, I think 2013, 2014, they did preferential tuition rates for illegal in-state tuition. Why would you give that if you're not even valid Florida residents? Why would you give a tuition break? And so that was a mistake. That's an incentive for people to come to Florida. So we want to remove that incentive. We also want to make sure when people are going to vote, you're not allowed to vote in Florida if you're not a U.S. citizen. That's in our state's constitution. And we have prosecuted people who have been non-citizens, both legally in the country but not citizens, and illegally in the country and not citizens. Florida's prosecuted people for voting when they shouldn't have. But the problem is once they voted, the vote counts. By the time you prosecute, the election's long over. So we need to change when people attest their eligibility to vote. They need to attest that they are indeed a U.S. citizen. And if they attest to that and they're not a U.S. citizen, you don't have to wait for the election. You can hold them accountable for lying on those forms. So making sure our elections continue to lead with integrity is really, really significant, and we're going to do that. Another way to deter illegal immigration into our state is to crack down on these remittances. So you have people come illegally, they'll send massive amounts of money back to their home countries, usually through wire transfers. Well, we're going to say on remittances, we want E-Verify for that too. So if you are lawfully employed here, send your remittances, but you're going to have to go through the E-Verify. And if you're not, then they're not going to be able to process your remittances from the state of Florida. That'll be a huge, huge disincentive for people to want to come here illegally. We also want to ensure that appropriate bail policies are in place for illegal aliens who are accused of crimes or arrested for crimes and charged with crimes. We want a rebuttable presumption that you don't get bail. This way, you're there, and people running the jail can call the DHS, have someone come, and hopefully just take care of it without us having to even worry about it going forward. But at a minimum, we want to recognize that these are flight risks. So there's a lot of things, and I think there's probably some other good ideas out there. But we need to be at the forefront of this. If we're doing this and working positively with our federal partners, this is going to make a huge, huge difference. And if you think about it, you have people come massive numbers into our country. That puts pressure on schools, puts pressure on healthcare, the roads. We're obviously worried about how people were driving in the ice up in particularly Northwest Florida. Some of the roads are still closed because of the freeze. But what will happen is the people that are here illegally, a lot of them don't have insurance, so they run into you and then they just leave the scene of the accident. And then you're just left holding the bag. Why would we want to have more of that? So there's a whole host of things, I think, from just day-to-day life that will make a difference. But then also, you have who governs this country? Do we govern it? Well, we've decided that there needs to be a process for this. You can't just end run around the process. And ultimately, we do need to uphold the rule of law and the fact that we are a sovereign country. So this is time to act. Now, when we called for the special session, you had the leaders of both the House and the Senate write a letter say they thought it was premature to do anything on illegal immigration. How is it premature when we've been waiting 4 years for this moment? It's not premature. Now's the time to act. We can't drag our feet. We can't wait for something to go into effect in July. We need something immediately, and we need to get everything moving, and we need to do what we told the people that elected us that we would do. And I'm excited to be able to make progress next week. One of the people that's here with us who's going to be leading that charge in the Florida House of Representatives. So we'll go through and just let everyone say their piece, and then we'll have a little bit of a dialogue after that.
All right, I did speed that up for everyone, just so that everyone could have the content. You can always go to YouTube down to the settings and slow everything down if you need to go back and listen to something. But the big takeaway from that press conference, and I know it would be an easy thing to miss, is that basically Donald Trump has just granted full independent sovereignty to the state of Florida. Now, I know a lot of you remember way back in 21 when Florida stood up and defeated the Biden administration over and over and over again. I had made the allegation then that Florida was acting as its own independent, sovereign country. When you look at the culture of Florida versus the culture of pretty much everywhere else, with a few notable exceptions, we are very, very different. not just in belief, not just in culture, but in the way that we operate based on that. And what, if you missed it, what I mean by full sovereignty is basically, in a nutshell, we can now, if we pick up illegals in Florida, we don't have to go through the feds anymore. We can deport them. When the governor was talking about the transport program, we can, under our own authority, seize finances. We talk about the remittances. We can now seize them and hold the money. The remittances going back to Mexico or going back to wherever these people are from. We can seize it and we can hold the people, and we can, under Florida's own authority, deport back to wherever they came from if they make it here somehow. That's huge. That's Florida. I think we're the only state now that has that authority. We have this, and that's why the governor called the news conference. That's one of the huge, big first steps to becoming your own nation, to becoming your own independent colony, for lack of a better term, I guess. We're in the stages right now, and I know Florida Monkey even talked about it for 3 years. You have to remember the separation from England. The separation of the colonies from England took decades and decades and decades to do. We have done more in Florida to separate ourselves from Washington, D.C. and the rest of this country in the last 3 years than was done in the first 10. They had gone back and forth with the king over, and I know it was a lot harder to do back then because you had to, correspond by ship, basically. But basically the idea is this. Things are changing fast, very, very quickly. And Florida, I don't think this was lost on Mr. Trump at all, that you have to have, and the best analogy that I can make, and it's kind of a computer geek analogy, is Florida is the partitioned hard drive. How many of you have ever gone and used a computer and did this or did that, and oh my gosh, I screwed it up, and all these pop-ups, and it's running slow, and the fan's going like crazy, and I need to do something to fix it and restore it back to what it used to be. You have to have a version, a mirror of what your computer used to be somewhere partitioned on your hard drive that can't be influenced by anything you're doing. And that's kind of what Florida has been. We refused to be influenced by 2020, by the Biden administration. We have a template, a mirror, a hard drive mirror, basically for a reset, so that everyone else can look at, okay, here's what Florida did. Here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, here's step 4. Here's how you do it. So I just wanted to do this video, and I know that first section I went through really, really fast, but with the ability to seize money and pick up people, and not only keep the few that are resisting in Florida from helping in this effort to get rid of these people, they have to positively be a part of it. Now, I will say this. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to suffer from unintended consequences. See, these people, whether they're legal or illegal, they're working. They're doing something to drive economic engine. They, aren't just littering around in homeless shelters. And all of a sudden, you're going to see the price of homes start to eke back up again. You're going to see waiting lists. You're going to see jobs go unfilled. And that's going to have a consequence to it. Well, why don't you just hire Americans? If there had been Americans to do those jobs to begin with, there wouldn't have been such a concerted, coordinated effort to import these people. So, I think they're going to be, especially the builders, the home builders, they're holding a kind of a dirty little secret about the way their independent contracting ways. There's going to be a problem. There's going to be a shortage of hands. And they're not gonna have any good explanations, because they're gonna say, well, I was never employing illegals. I was never. Baloney. You absolutely were. You absolutely were. So I will leave it there. And one quick thing right here at the end I wanted to cover. Some people are missing the deal with TikTok. Now, I know this doesn't seem like it's that important to a lot of folks, but it's really important in the sense that this is going to set a precedent. See, TikTok is, even though those of us who have TikTok, now I don't use the platform. I have a Florida Maquis account over there, but I had to create one so nobody who wasn't me went over there and decided to pretend like they were. So I have the placeholder account over there. But here's the problem. TikTok is no longer available in the App Store, meaning if you have a phone or a device and you want to download TikTok to it, you can't do that. Now, if you already have the TikTok app, it's working just fine. But if people want to get new phones, or if they want to transfer from one phone to the other, or just start on TikTok, they can't get it. But Florida Maquis, it's going to be sold, and Donald Trump has buyers. Here's the problem with that. TikTok is owned by ByteDance. ByteDance is a Chinese company. Even if ByteDance wanted to sell it to the U.S. buyers, they have to get permission from the Chinese government first. So this entire thing with TikTok is in the hands of the Chinese government. You could have a buyer for TikTok. You could have ByteDance want to do it. You could have the approval of the Trump administration. It could all be set to go. And if the Chinese government says no, it doesn't happen. Now, here's the problem. You can't go to the iOS app, the Apple App Store, and download TikTok. Even though there's access to the actual content of the app, the store where you would go to download the app onto your phone or whatever, can't find it. And that's caused a problem. Phones with TikTok still installed are reselling for over $10,000 now on eBay. But Florida Maquis, I thought almost everybody have it. Who would pay that kind of money? Well, like I said, what happens if your phone breaks? What happens if your phone malfunctions? You got to get a new phone, and you've got a business on TikTok, and TikTok's not just for kids anymore. There's a lot of people that make their livelihoods on it. And here's some of the examples. Old phones. Here's a 16 Pro Max, 512 gigabyte, I think they mean, with TikTok installed, going for 20 grand. This one, open box, 15,000. So, just saying, the law of unintended consequences. I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, gosh, I downloaded that app and I never really even used it, but if somebody would give me that kind of money for my phone, hang on to your hats, folks. It's very, very difficult. See, if you were to try to reset your phone and try to wipe your phone, you lose the app. And you can't go re-download it because it's not in the App Store anymore. So don't reset your phone if you're going to try to sell your phone. Don't reset your phone. So these people are selling this. I don't know how they're doing what they're doing without handing over a bunch of personal information that's already in the phone, because you can't reset the phone like you would normally do if you were selling a phone. You can't reset it without losing the TikTok app, and that's what gives it its value. So once again, this is all in the hands of the Chinese. This is all in the hands of the Chinese. See, that's the thing. And you might ask, well, how is this any different than the United States at this point in time? How is it any different? How is China any different from the U.S.? If we're begging for one man, Donald Trump, to either approve or disapprove this activity or that activity or this or that or the other, well, what would Donald Trump have us do? What would Donald Trump administration think about this, that, and the other? We're basically China at this point. Trump is just the American version of Xi Jinping at this point, ruling by executive fiat. with nobody willing to stand up to him in either House of Congress or the courts. Just saying. Be careful what you wish for, kids. We are no different than China now. And believe me, the Chinese have some interesting immigration policies as well. So, I'm not sure if China was ever going to need those 1,000,000-man army and 10,000 tanks in Mexico or Canada or whatever. Win without firing a shot. Just convince a bunch of Americans that a dictatorship is, what we need to have based on an election. And I'd love for anybody out there to tell me how it's not. Donald Trump says it, and it is now the law of the land because there is no check and no balance. Not within his own party, not within an opposing party, and not within the courts. He can do anything he wants now. Anything at all. So, I will leave it there. God bless. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. See you guys next time.